Good afternoon, everyone. It's 1:15, getting a little bit later start than I'd like. Members, we're supposed to be on the floor at 2, so we're going to move fairly quickly through this agenda. At this point in the session, action or inaction may determine the outcome of a piece of legislation. And so, especially when it comes to some of these bills, we're going to err on the side of action, and to the extent that there needs to be further collaboration or work on a piece of legislation, then that certainly can occur. But I wanted to kind of set the stage, if we could, for what at least is my intention, the chairman's intention. And with that, clerk, if you could go ahead and call the roll.
Senator Albritton. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman. Here. Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
I am here, and we have a quorum. Members, when the Rules Chairman is in the House, he gets first billing. And so, Senator Wagner, you have Senate Bill 336. Members, it is last on the agenda, but first in our, the Rules Chairman is first in our hearts, so he will present first. I also believe that the Chairman has Rules Chairman has a sub for that bill. It should have been emailed to you this morning, and it is also contained in your left-hand pocket of your binder for your consideration. And so, Senator Wagner, if you want to present your bill, and then we'll get on the sub pretty quickly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 336 will make sure that we are competitive and can maximize the opportunities before us. It will impact the entire region and state. This bill will allow the creation of a research and development corridor by municipalities in Alabama that choose to participate. Initially, this will apply to a project in the south side of Birmingham, UAB, Southern Research, and a new community called Southtown, which will be developed by biotech companies. This is huge for Birmingham and huge for Alabama, and basically that's what this bill does. And I don't know as the substitute, but
okay. So there's a sub. I've already had a motion to adopt the sub by Senator Hatcher, and I've had a second by Senator Carnley to adopt the sub. I'd like to. Senator Hatcher is offering the sub. It is seconded by Senator Carnley. Okay. And at this point, we're going to call the roll on the substitute. Clerk, if you would call the roll.
Senator Albritton. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman.
Aye.
Senator Gudger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison.
Aye.
Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
Aye. Okay. The substitute is adopted. Questions for the sponsor on the substitute?
Move the sub.
Hold on.
I think we're both doing the same thing.
Okay, I'm sorry. We are on this. We are on the bill as substitute. Is there any discussion on the substitute? Okay. Do I have a motion for favorable report?
So move.
I have a motion for favorable report by Senator Coleman.
Second.
A second by Coleman Madison.
Coleman.
My apologies. Any further discussion using previous roll without objection? Okay. Bill's given a favorable report.
Thank you, Member.
Thank you, sir.
Chairman, I just want to say thank you to Senator Wagner before he leaves. He doesn't come before us very often, but when he comes with legislation like this, while he says Jefferson County, it doesn't just impact Jefferson County. It's about economic engines that are lasting, that leaves a footprint for this entire state of Alabama and job creations and economic development for a long time. So I want to thank you.
Ditto.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Rules Chairman. Okay, we're going to hop back to the front of the agenda here, and we have House Bill 382 by Representative Paramore. We have the esteemed Senator Kitchens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. House Bill 382 really does two things, and it deals with contracts, but it makes the procurement process more efficient. It also modernizes the vendor disclosure statements. On the first part of that, really what we're trying to do when we talk about our colleges and universities, we're getting this down. There's a 14-day window to contest these. It says that you have a 5-day window to file an intent to contest, because a lot of these contracts are not being contested at all. So you have a 5-day window to file that intent to contest that would then extend out. So it tries to streamline that. And then also the biggest part on the modernizing the vendor disclosure statement. Currently, you have to have a wet signature on the notarization of these, and it would allow it to be transmitted electronically.
Senator Hovey moves favorable report. Do I have a second? Second by Senator Carnley. Any objections to using previous roll? Bill's given a favorable report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee.
Thank you. Next up, we have House Bill 111 by Representative DuBose. Welcome to committee, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, committee. I'm here to present a bill which you have heard once before, presented by Senator Weaver. This is HB 111. The companion bill, SB 92, was passed out of this committee. This bill, HB 111, is a definitions bill. It codifies the time-honored definitions of male, female, man, woman, boy, girl, mother, father, and sex. This bill is definitional for our courts to have guidance when interpreting laws that already exist in Alabama. Words have meaning, and my intent is to make sure we have uniform definitions and our courts have clarity.
Thank you, Representative DuBose. As you mentioned, we've already passed this legislation out of this committee before. I understand there's an amendment. Senator Kelly, you're recognized to offer the amendment.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Kelly.
Yes, sir. This amendment basically it provides that state department, agency, board, or commissions that operate or sponsors overnight programs for minors where attendees share multi-occupancy bathrooms, changing facilities, that they would be exempt from this, basically like your state parks, so on and so forth. You can read it there. It's pretty self-explanatory. Representative Vos may want to expand further.
Members, this amendment, just so we're clear on it, is in the left-hand side of your pocket, there for your consideration. Try to be as organized as possible.
I didn't understand.
There are questions?
Yeah, I'm happy to further explain. This amendment provides that when there's any overnight programs that are sponsored by a state agency, board, or commission, and they're for minors, where attendees share multi-occupancy bathrooms or changing facilities or sleeping quarters, that members of the opposite sex are not permitted to share these spaces with the exception of family members. So these are talking about camps for minors, where attendees share multi-occupancy bathrooms. You're not going to have opposite sex in those rooms. And that's the traditional, what we've grown up to, what we're used to when we
Thank you, Representative DuBose.
Some of these camps at state parks have, so on and so forth.
I understand what you're saying, but if it's going to apply to some, it ought to apply to all. I don't know why we are excluding the state facilities.
Well, this says state department, agency, boards, and commissions. We're trying to get in the stamp camps that we're aware of. We know there's one Dolphin Island Research Lab. There's one at the Battleship Space Camp.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you. Ms. Chair, and when you had recognized the gentleman, I was getting your attention at that point to let you know that I did have a question. That's what it was about. I heard who you had recognized at the point. I think what I'm still trying to understand about the amendment itself, is the amendment adding or excluding?
It's requiring it does not, the bill itself does not require any same-sex spaces. It's a definitions bill. This adds to the definitions bill that in these particular situations, that opposite sex would not be allowed to share these particular accommodations, which are bathrooms, changing facilities, or sleeping quarters. And this is strictly to overnight programs for minors.
Okay. That's the clarity I needed at the end.
Okay.
Very good. Senator
Thank you.
Hatcher, did you have a question? Okay, very good. Senator Hovey.
Sorry, not to break stride here, but so we go from a definitions bill to a, I just feel like this amendment all of a sudden starts to change the spirit, as to use your term, a definitions bill on what our sexes are. I have some concern over the vagueness of any state department, agency, board, or commission for these overnight programs. I know there's lots of, we've mentioned state parks and et cetera, but all of our state schools have various programs and attended and occupied by these minors. So I'd like some further clarification on your amendment. Appreciate your bill. I want to support a definitions bill, but I'm going to vote against the amendment just for further definitions and clarification on which state departments and perhaps provide some exclusions for some.
Okay.
Just to lay it out there.
Thank you, Senator Hovey. So I have a motion to adopt the amendment from Senator Kelly. Is there a second? The chair will second. Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Senator Albritton. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman.
On the amendment?
On the amendment.
Come back to me, please.
Senator Gedger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey.
No.
Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss. Senator Coleman.
No.
Senator Elliott.
Aye. 5-3, the amendment is adopted, and now we are on the bill. Is there any further discussion? I have a motion by Senator Kelly to adopt the bill, second by the chair, or nope, we'll do Senator Albritton. Thank you, sir. Clerk, call the long roll, please.
Senator Albritton. Senator Carnley. Senator Coleman.
No.
Senator Gedger. Senator Hatcher. Senator Hovey. Senator Kelly. Senator Coleman Madison. Senator Chambliss. Senator Elliott.
Aye. 5-3, bill receives favorable report. Thank you, Representative DuBose.
Thank you, committee. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Hatcher. My apologies.
Mr. Chairman, just a very brief statement for a person who drove down about 6 hours from Huntsville. Susan Stewart, she says, as a cisgender or non-transgender woman, I've been trying to figure out what problems this bill is intended to fix. House Bill 111 pretends to promote safety, privacy, and fairness. It defines sex scientifically and accurately, and then says the state can establish certain single-sex spaces. So I've searched for what must be the many cases of non-transgender women like me being assaulted by transgender women in bathrooms or locker rooms. There basically aren't any in the U.S. What I found instead was an endless number of articles about non-transgender men who went into bathrooms to attack women. So who is going to be safer? And privacy? How will we regulate these spaces? How will I prove I was born female? Who's going to check? What papers will I have to carry? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Hatcher. Okay. I'm going to skip House Bill 235, which I'll be handling for Representative Lipscomb towards the end here. And we have House Bill 305. Oh, he's here. I'm sorry. Please do. Thank you.
Apologies for my tardiness. I was handling some things on the House floor.
I'm glad you're here.
Well, I have no paperwork at hand, but what I can tell you is this is a standard housekeeping bill. It handles some fees, et cetera, et cetera. I'd ask for a favorable report.
Well, Representative Lipscomb, I will tell you that if it is a bill that deals with boards and it's in this committee, then it must be okay.
It must be.
I have a motion by Senator Hovey to give this. Oh, we have questions. Okay.
Did I miss something I'm sitting here and I'm looking straight ahead? Did I get an explanation what the bill is about?
Representative, if you could get a little more detail about fees, fines, et cetera, and what you're doing here.
It is for the Board of Architecture, of which I am a resident architect in the House, and they asked me to carry this bill. It is adjusting some of their fees and various other housekeeping issues to get them into modern standards.
Further questions for the sponsor? Perfectly reasonable questions,
Yes, thank you.
Senator Coleman.
Thank you. And I heard the gentleman say to get us into, the modern times, but can you tell us where the fee went from what to what?
I cannot tell you that. I apologize. I hustled up here rather quickly.
As the sponsor.
So, Senator Coleman, there's a fiscal note at the very beginning under tab 3 in your book.
So we're going from. But it doesn't tell us what it was before. And the only reason I posed the question, because, oftentimes we've had issues in this particular committee with folks thinking that the increases were too much. But the fiscal note doesn't tell us what it currently is.
My apologies. There's no fee increase. It stays the same. What this does is this just changes some of their policies and procedures.
I guess I'm trying to think, Mr. Chair, how to even respond to that. We do pass some things out of here pretty quick that we've seen often, but I think I would have felt more comfortable had the gentleman known his bill a little bit better. And so when it changes the policies and procedures, well, what does it change?
Emeritus people.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
All
right.
May I ask one last question?
If I may.
Um,
Administratively, it provides for virtual meetings in compliance with state law. It removes language for secrets of appointment are no longer provided by the governor's office. Removal annual requirement to report to the governor's office. Payment vouchers to be approved by executive director in keeping with standard practice. Standard applications to be reviewed by staff to reduce turnaround time. Include standard reference to sunset review requirement. Educationally, defines the NAAB as the accrediting body for architectural education. Provides educational information to the public and outreach materials. It allows the board to accept NCARB standards as a path to licensure, which is the National Council of Architectural Registration Boards. That is the governing entity nationwide. Enforcement, provide the standard licensing tool of cease and desist authority for non-licenses. Fees, provide for fees to be set through the public rulemaking process, although there are no current changes. Renewals, remove renewal requirement for emeritus architects, clearly define renewal period time frame within specific dates. Provide language similar to individual license renewals to COAs, certificate of authorizations that is, where renewal time, frame, late fee, and reinstatement process is defined. Provide an option for the board to waive initial renewal fees for the purpose of attracting architects to Alabama. That is the extent of the changes.
Senator Coleman.
Did I understand you to say that the appointment or recommendation for appointment does not go through the governor's office?
That is correct.
Are we changing that?
That is in the bill, yes. The certificates of appointment are no longer provided by the governor's office.
Well, Mr. Chairman of Boards,
I am not the chairman of the board.
well, I mean, you know, why do you all feel necessary to make this change? Since all the other boards are recommendations come through the board, although
That's not the appointment, that's the certificates of appointment.
this, so what is not coming to the board? Maybe I'm getting something confused here.
I'm sorry?
Maybe I'm getting something confused. So what is not coming through to the governor's office that normally does? Explain that again.
The certificate.
The certificates.
Yes, ma'am. The appointment itself is still provided by the governor's office.
Okay, I got you. Thank you.
Senator Carnley.
So I do see you're removing the maximum from the statute of $250, and that could be set by the rulemaking process. I mean, is that something, do we know what that maximum is? I mean,
That is what it currently is.
right, but it's saying you're removing that from statute. So by rule in here, it says that it could be $1,000 next year.
That is a possibility.
Is there a reason for that? I mean, I don't know, is somebody here from Architect Board that wants to speak on that can maybe explain it?
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Paula Pilgrim. I serve as the Executive Director for the Board of Architects. This language to basically establish fees through the rulemaking process is standard language now for most licensure boards so that we don't have to come back to see you every year or 2 years if there's an issue. Believe me, boards in Alabama know not to abuse the rulemaking process. We know if we misstep, you're going to hear about it. So there is no plan to raise any fees. In fact, this board is known for striking fees. We've struck several fees in the last few years. Nobody on the board even remembers the last fee increase. The last fee reduction was in 2011, and we had no fee increases and do not plan any fee increases. But we do wish to set those fees through the rulemaking process rather than legislative process.
Okay, members, we're going to have to move along. What's the will of the committee? I have a motion by Senator Kelly. Is there a second? I have a second by Senator Albritton. Is there any further discussion? Clerk, please call the long roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Carnley?
Aye.
Senator Coleman?
Abstain.
Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Kelly? Senator Coleman Madison?
Aye, because it was explained.
Thank you.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Elliott?
Aye. Okay, we have 7 ayes, 1 abstention. Bill receives a favorable report. Thank you, Representative Lisk.
Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Paramore, House Bill 305.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. Basically, this bill allows gas districts to raise the ceiling for what they pay their board members. Board members currently can receive up to $1,000 per meeting, and this will raise it to $1,750. The chairman receives $1,250, and it will raise it to $2,000. It's just raising the ceiling for what they can do. They're not required to pay this, but it's raising the ceiling for those boards. Southeast Alabama Gas District wants to do this in my area, so that's the gist of the
Senator
bill.
Carnley.
Is this the companion bill to Senator Gudger?
Yes, it's companion bill to Senator Gudger.
Move for favorable.
I have a motion by Senator Carnley. I have a second by Senator Hatcher. Let's get a good roll if we can, clerk.
Senator Albritton? Senator Carnley? Senator Coleman?
Aye.
Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Kelly? Senator Coleman Madison?
Abstain on this. Abstain.
Senator Chambliss? Senator Elliott?
Aye. Okay, so much for my unanimous roll, but we'll get back on it eventually. So Bill receives a favorable report. Thank you, Representative Paramore. Senator Hatcher, you are carrying House Bill 318.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the recognition. House Bill 318 is a continuation of our military package of military bills, and this one, of course, as it relates to
I have a motion by Senator Carnley for favorable report, a second by Senator Hatcher. We're going to
Put me out.
Okay, we're going to use the previous roll and mark Senator Coleman Madison as an aye. Any objections? Very good. Bill receives a favorable report. Well done, Senator Hatcher. Let's see if I can do as well. This next bill is House Bill 335. Senator Chambliss has already passed the companion bill for this out of this committee. Previously, he was not able to be here today, so he had asked the committee's indulgence to go ahead and move Representative Hill's bill, which is identical to one we have seen before and passed out of committee before. And with that, Senator Carnley, I appreciate your motion for favorable report. Second by Senator Hovey. Is there any discussion? Bill receives, using using previous role without objection. Bill receives a favorable report. Thank you, Representative Hill.
I want him to move mine like he moved that one.
Representative Brown has House Bill 336. Welcome, sir. I love boards.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I have House Bill 336, which allows elected officials at the local, county, and state level to serve uncompensated on water, sewer, and fire authorities.
Approval.
I have a motion by Senator Coleman Madison, a second by Senator Hatcher. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection to using previous role? Bill receives a fair report. Thank you, Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members.
Representative Mountain Brook Faulkner, you have House Bill 379.
Faulkner is that first name?
I couldn't resist.
I want to say thank you, Mr. Chairman, but I don't know
I
now.
couldn't resist, sir. I apologize.
Members, Mr. Chairman, the bill before you, HB 379, deals strictly with the Jefferson County Board of Equalization and only applies to Jefferson County. It is part of the state, had to be a statewide bill because of the section of this law and the way it deals by population with the counties. So we're amending that section of state law that applies to counties of 600,000 or more, which is just Jefferson County. About 3 years ago, I was receiving a lot of input from constituents in Jefferson County, as were my colleagues, about protests. 2 years ago, before last session, I asked the Alabama Department of Revenue to come up and meet with me to look at how Jefferson County had its appraisal staff serving under the Board of Equalization's direction. As the department head for that appraisal staff was the chairman of the Board of Equalization. This is not done, members, in any other county. The Department of Revenue confirmed that for me. There's only 2 counties in this state that do not have the appraisal staff serve under their revenue commissioner or their tax assessor. So I'm sure that's what most of you are familiar with. In Jefferson, our appraisal staff was serving under our Board of Equalization, who you would appeal to your appraisal to have your protest. So it should be separate and distinct. I went into that, had a little meeting with the county officials, and they directed me, because of our 2 divisions, that we needed to do it the way that's being proposed under the bill, to move our appraisal staff as a separate department, but it would be out from under the Board of Equalization.
Thank you, Senator Kelly. Do I have a second?
Question.
Do we have a second real quick? Anybody yet? Okay, second by Senator Albright. So we're going to motion to second. Senator Coleman, you're recognized.
Thank you. And let me first and foremost, before I start, thank the gentleman for reaching out to me. We actually had a pretty extensive conversation this morning, so he is not going to be shocked by anything that I get ready to say. My members downstairs sometimes say I get kind of tired of you saying how long you've been here, but I have been here for 22 years. And in this particular position, prior to the gentleman bringing this bill, there had been several attempts by a former member of the legislature to change the chairperson of the board, who is an African-American female, to make that an elected position. The gentleman has assured me that the reason that he has this bill has nothing to do with race or gender or any of that, and I believe him. However, it does still impact an African-American female who is the chair of the board, who will no longer be the chair of the board if this bill passes. Now, the bill does say, because she serves a dual role, she does serve as an at-will employee in addition to the chair of the board. And I do see here in the bill where it does protect her. There is language there that protects the position. My issue, though, is does it actually protect her salary? Again, this is a person that is my actual constituent, and I've known her for many years. You and I, when we spoke, you did tell me that you had not heard anything about anyone challenging her doing her job. Am I correct in what I'm saying?
I'm sorry, Senator.
When we were
challenged
talking,
her.
no, that no one has said anything, that she's not doing her job. She hasn't been good at what she's doing.
Yes, I have. Yes, I know nothing about the service of her or even how the county was going to propose whether she would stay as board chair or whether she would oversee the department. And this was at their request.
Yeah, and so the language does say on page 10, if there is an at-will employee that serves as the department head on the effective date of this act, that the individual shall continue in that capacity, subject to and consistent with the foregoing. That lets me know she will still be in her position as the department head, but it doesn't assure me that her salary is not going to be impacted. That is number one. And then number two, and again, these are things that he and I discussed this morning. On page 9, starting with line 242, the bill says the board shall act independently from any county department or office of equalization and shall preside over all real and personal property protests consistent with this chapter, etc. And one of the questions I had for you this morning was, now that it will be, if this bill passes, a separate entity, who staffs the board? Because that person right now staffs the board. They provide all the staff services, whether it is, housing all documents, providing documents, all of that. And if with it being a separate entity, based on what it says, who actually will end up doing that work? And that is not, in my opinion, spelled out in this piece of legislation. And so I did still have that particular question. And again, just wanted to go on record, I won't be voting for the legislation. And it's because, again, in a county like Jefferson County, who has been under a consent decree, because they were not hiring African-American department heads. Yes, she will stay as the department head. But now you're asking me to support a piece of legislation that removes an African-American female, a double minority, as chair of the board, that then now allows an entity that more than likely will not reappoint someone who looks like her and possibly not even gendered like her to replace her. So I'm going to not be able to support the legislation on those grounds. Although I did talk to the individual, again, who is my person, is a constituent, known her for many years. At one time, actually, even our girls cheered together. That's how long I've known her. Now our girls are adults. A comment.
Oh,
please
sorry.
think that
I was responding.
She ultimately said that the train is running. It looks like that the legislation is going to pass, even though no one talked to her about it in advance. The impacted person, she said, if they're gonna make sure that my salary is protected and my job is protected, since that train is running, I'm not going to fight it. And it does actually put us in line with other counties in the rest of the state, which you were clear in what you said earlier, does put us in line. But I don't know how you have a piece of legislation where the impacted person, that nobody talks to that person in advance. And I think I've said more than enough at this point.
Senator Coleman, are there other
say my
questions for the
position.
sponsor?
I just want to know, is
Senator
this
Coleman
a
Madison,
civil
you're
service
recognized.
position? Thank you, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is this a civil service position that she's in? Because there are certain guidelines that would come under the Jefferson County Civil Service.
She is the person who's serving this dual role. She will continue to be a department head in the county and head up the appraisal staff.
Is that under civil service?
I do not believe so. That's correct. She is not civil service.
Well, we might want to look at something of how we can address that issue, not just for that person, but whoever comes in, since we're making some changes. And I don't know whether you all, and maybe you have been given an opportunity to, about the staffing, and because right now it's under that department. So does your legislation address, is this going to be volunteers that's coming in, or, and I can understand your rationale for doing this. I've had to make a request of that board myself because of appraisal property that I didn't agree with. And again, but I didn't really know that the person that you, or the people that you, that sent it out, that said, this is what it's worth, and I have a disagreement with it, that I'm going back to the same people to ask them, you know. So I'm just wondering, did it address how the new people will be chosen, or where is it, or the staff people staying in place? How is it done?
That's where I was coming. The Board of Equalization is nominated right now, each position by the city of Birmingham, gets 3 nominations. The Jefferson County Department Board of Education has 3, and then any city municipality in Jefferson has 1 nomination, and then the appointment is done for 2 of them. It's by the county under this bill. Currently, we have 3 females who serve on our Board of Equalization, 2 African American females, 1 white female. That's the makeup of the board. This will add 2 new members, and one of those new members will be appointed by the county. One will be appointed by the Department of Revenue. But the nominations coming from the city of Birmingham, the Jefferson County Board of Education, and every city, which is current law, doesn't change.
Thank you, Representative. Clerk, call the long roll.
Senator Albritton? Senator Carnley? Senator Coleman? Senator Gudger?
We've had conversations.
Senator Hovey? Senator Kelly? Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Chambliss? Senator Elliott?
Aye. Okay. 7-2, your bill receives a favorable report. Thank you, Representative Faulkner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Members, next bill and last bill on the calendar here is mine. Deals with cooperative improvement districts. I don't want this to be mistook for some of the other legislation that's floating around out there right now that may have more tentacles. This simply allows a cooperative improvement district to amend the area that it is covering, and so extend the area that's covered. Originally, Senator Figures was going to have this bill, but it kind of got down to the wire, and I think she maybe wasn't here one day, but this is something she was going to be carrying for the city of Spanish Fort, which she and I share. There is an amendment that I want to adopt, and the amendment deals with the end of line 67 on page 3, and all it does, the amendment does, is say that in order for the cooperative improvement district to add your property, you have to agree that they can add your property. And so that's consistent with, I have a motion to adopt the amendment by Senator Carnley, a second by Senator Coleman Madison. So we're long roll on adopting the amendment, if we can, real quick. Yes, sir, please. It is a good question, and I don't know that the conversation of whether or not it's contiguous. I think for practical purposes, in the instance that this is talking about, that it is contiguous, but you're correct. That's a very good question, and certainly worth doing. So let's call the roll on adoption of the amendment, please.
Senator Albritton? Senator Carnley? Senator Coleman? Senator Gudger? Senator Hatcher? Senator Hovey? Senator Kelly? Senator Coleman Madison? Senator Chambliss? Senator Elliott?
Aye. Okay, we've adopted the amendment, and we're on final passage as amendment. I have a motion by Senator Hovey and a second by Senator Carnley for adoption as amended, using previous roll without objection.
Discussion.
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure that me and you talk about this before it hits the floor.
Oh yeah, and I think that's a very good point. Having it be contiguous is a good question for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to know, did you say that this bill is only for Spanish Fork?
It is not.
Okay, so it'll impact other CICs? Okay.
It certainly can.
Okay.
And so I
That's
just,
a good thing.
I was just, Senator Albritton's got that area too, and I was trying to explain to him what exactly we're talking about there. So, okay. Any objection using previous roll? Bill receives a favorable report. We have concluded 5 minutes early. Thank you, members. I appreciate it.